Welcome to this explainer. So, we really have to ask, what actually happens to AI when the blank check to buy infinite GPUs just, well, runs out? Today, we're digging into a fascinating source that argues the era of brute force AI, where whoever has the biggest mountain of chips automatically wins, is officially ending. We're looking at a massive shift from a pure capital race of hardware hoarding to a structural race of algorithmic efficiency, specifically driven by the architecture of DeepSeek V4.
You might think that hitting a hardware constraint is a total dead end, but the source actually frames it as the ultimate forcing function. See, when you can't hide your architectural inefficiencies behind a massive, incredibly expensive wall of compute, you are literally forced to invent. Scarcity drives the discovery of lower loss pathways. Waste becomes highly visible, and efficiency basically becomes a matter of survival.
It's really a tale of two regimes. On one side, we have the old way, scaling by sheer force. We're talking massive clusters, constantly duplicated data movement, and incredibly visible energy loss. It's a leaky pipeline. But on the other side, algorithmic leverage. You get a beautifully compact architecture, cleanly separated control modules, and drastically higher capabilities squeezed out of every single hardware unit. It's a night and day difference. All right, here's a quick look at our roadmap. We're going to cover 1. The brute force era ending, 2. AI as energy flow, 3. Memory and mathematical control, 4. Attention cost and output speed, 5. The economic power shift, and 6. Realities, risks, and governance.
Let's jump straight into Section 1. The brute force era ends, moving from a capital race to a structure race.
For years, throwing more and more chips at a model kind of masked some massive architectural inefficiencies. I mean, if you're a capital-rich lab, you can afford a really wasteful memory path simply because you have absolute hardware abundance. But our source paper completely flips that paradigm. It argues that an AI model isn't just a static pile of parameters sitting around waiting for a query. It's an active energy system. Capability actually flows through the architecture, not just the hardware.
Which brings us to Section 2, AI as energy flow, or the energetic paradigm.
Think of this like a unified conversion chain on a continuous factory floor. First, raw compute energy enters the system. Then, memory constrains it. Active reasoning transforms that data. To keep everything stable, mathematical control steps in. Then, attention carefully allocates the model's focus. And finally, the token output converts all that internal energy into real, usable economic power. If the system fails at any single step here, like reasoning with the wrong pathway, it just bleeds efficiency.
All right, Section 3, memory and mathematical control, separating storage from active thought.
Historically, AI has suffered from a really deep inefficiency, which is fusing memory directly with reasoning. This meant jamming up incredibly expensive GPU compute pathways just to retrieve simple, fixed dictionary facts. It was a massive conversion failure. But with an n-gram-scale architecture, the system actually separates host memory from active reasoning. By moving the heavy memory dictionary off to cheaper storage, it frees up those premium GPUs to do exactly what they do best, which is actively reason and transform data.
But here's the catch. At 1 trillion parameters, models can get incredibly volatile. So control in this context isn't just some external safety slogan you slap on at the end. It's deep mathematical stability. The MHC control mechanism acts like a mathematical corset. It imposes strict geometric discipline on the flow of information so the model doesn't just explode or collapse entirely during training. Without this containment, capability literally cannot exist at scale. Let's move to Section 4. Attention cost and output speed, routing signals and breaking the memory wall.
We hear so much hype about massive context windows, right? But honestly, a million token document is absolutely useless if the cost to process it bankrupts you. Long context capability is really a signal routing and attention cost problem, not just a raw measure of token capacity. The paper points out that DeepSeek flattens this cost curve, ensuring that irrelevant haystack material doesn't turn into runaway friction. It actually makes massive context practical for real enterprise work.
And then there's the issue of speed. We're looking at a massive 2x generation improvement here. Modern AI is often totally bottlenecked by having to shuttle data back and forth for every single word. The source calls this massive inefficiency transport loss. Imagine walking all the way across a giant warehouse every single time you need one item. By predicting multiple future tokens at once, one data movement cycle validates a much larger chunk of output. It completely changes inference economics.
So, what does this all mean? Section 5? the economic power shift, and cost compression as power redistribution.
Cost compression isn't just about saving money on your cloud bill. It's fundamentally about redistributing power. Under the old brute force regime, sky-high costs naturally led to capital concentration. Basically, only massive megacorporations held the keys to frontier AI. But algorithmic leverage lowers those costs, which enables distributed deployment. It seriously weakens those capital monopolies and makes private, highly secure, local AI deployments completely viable for normal businesses, hospitals, and law firms.
Now, to prove these architectural gains are actually real, the source highlights software engineering as the ultimate testing ground. Why coding? Well, because code severely punishes shallow fluency. It either compiles or it crashes. There's no in-between. If a low-cost architecture can ace coding benchmarks, it proves its internal reasoning pathways are structurally sound, maintaining a stable conversion from a human requirement all the way to a testable, bug-free output.
Let's wrap up with Section 6, Realities, Risks, and Governance. Maintaining operational control in a distributed world.
As incredibly exciting as all this is, the source lays down a very clear warning strip. We have to separate the hype from reality. For example, benchmark claims might not actually transfer to messy, real-world workflows. That memory offload we talked about, it could create sneaky new latency bottlenecks. Plus, retrieving data from a huge context doesn't guarantee the model is actually reasoning truthfully. Multi-token prediction can even propagate errors faster. Ultimately, cheaper AI deployment means failure can spread faster than ever. Efficiency without strict control is a huge risk, making auditability absolutely crucial.
I'll leave you with this really powerful thought straight from the source. The end of brute force AI does not mean the end of compute. It means compute must become disciplined. Look, hardware is still going to matter immensely, but hoarding chips is no longer the sole ticket to the frontier. The future belongs to systems that squeeze every drop of capability out of their architecture with the absolute minimum structural loss. So the real question is your organization still banking on brute force, or are you ready for the era of true algorithmic discipline? Thanks for tuning into this explainer.